Good morning, everybody. This is Stephen Pugh of City and Guilds course. This is level 3. This is video number 53. And today we're going to be talking about estimating quantities of construction materials. Okay. Now we need to understand the units of measurement. Okay. There's different types of units of measurement. There is metric units and there is imperial units. Now the imperial units are the old-fashioned inches and foot. Okay. And the metric units are millimeters, meters, and kilometers. Okay. Now, generally speaking, we don't need to normally think about a kilometer. You never order a kilometer of wood. You know, this is a huge amount. But the units of measurement for length are millimeter and meter. That's the generally accepted metric unit. Now, when the metric system was brought in this country, immediately the building industry decided we won't be using all of the units of measurement in the metric system. We will not be using centimeters. We won't be using decimeters. Okay, because a centimeter is just about that big and a decimeter is 10 times bigger, about that big. We won't be using those measurements. They'll make it very complicated. So there's only the meter and the millimeter, and between the two is 1,000 millimeters. It takes 1,000 millimeters to make 1 meter, and it takes 1,000 meters to make a kilometer. Now, in the old measurements of length, it was an inch, okay, as in, say, 6 inches or 4 inches or 3 inches, but that was quite a big unit of measurement. It traditionally was the size of your thumb. That's about an inch. And then there was the foot. Now, the foot was 12 inches long. So immediately you begin to see that this isn't metric. This isn't 10 inches. This is 12 inches, okay? And then we had the yard. Now, the yard was 3 feet, okay? So a foot is this long, a yard was this long. So it's very near to what the meter would be. But this is, and so, for example, we used to order plywood in 8 foot by 4 foot, okay, or 5 foot by 10 foot, okay? But that, of course, is no relation to the metric system. We need to be a little bit careful about this because some things, some items are measured using both measurements. So, for example, plasterboard, it may be 1,200 long, okay? It might be 24 inches wide, and you just need to check to find out. So you've got inches for the width and you've got metric for the length. You just need to learn some of these quirks. And when you go to buy certain items, just make sure that you're getting the right measurement in the right unit. Now, liquid is measured in milliliters or in liters. Now, a milliliter, you would need to have 1,000 milliliters to make a liter, okay? In the old-fashioned, it was generally a pint or a gallon or a quart, and these are measurements that are not really used a great deal anymore. People talk about a pint of beer or a gallon of petrol, but people very often will talk about a liter of petrol or a liter of whiskey. So you are these various measurements. You've got the metric and you've got the imperial. In terms of weight, in the metric system, we've got the gram, we've got the kilogram, and then we've got the ton, or the tone, it is, the tone. And in the old imperial, there was the pound, okay? And then there was the stone, and there were ounces. See, that's very different, isn't it? They don't really have any relation to each other. The metric units and the imperial units are really just quite different altogether. The next thing that we need to notice, this is going to be a very brief video, by the way. There's not a vast amount involved. The next thing we need to remember is that as a carpenter, you'll be involved in what's called linear calculations. So, for example, when you're buying the skirting to do a whole house, you won't go in with a big long list of all the different pieces, the sizes that you need. What you'll do is you'll go in and you'll say, I need 80 meters of skirting, and you will have worked out that building needs about 70 meters, okay, of skirting, and you're going to order about 10% more, between 7 to 10% more, because sometimes when you come to cut a piece, it's got a little bit of waste on the end that, funnily enough, may not be able to be used anywhere. Okay, so you need to be ordering 10% more. And if we take a typical house, this is a typical room. This is a room that is 2.2 meters and 2.2 meters by 4.2 meters. And we don't go to the builder's merchant and say, well, I want one piece at 2.2, another piece at 2.2, another piece at 4.2, and another piece at 4.2. We don't do that. What we do is we add up how much we need, which actually is 12.8 meters, but we'll put another, it's 10%. We put on another 1.2 meters as wastage, just so that you've got a little bit of spare timber. And then you then have to be a little bit careful as to how you use it, because you don't want to be ended up short in any way. So you might go along, even though it's only 12.8, you might go along and ask for 13 or nearly 14 meters of skirting to enable you to have enough to do the whole job. This is what's called linear meters. And you might have 6 rooms like this, and you might have to work the overall meterage of the whole thing. If there were doors in the room and you're going to order the architrave, then obviously you'd remove the size of the architrave from the length of timber that you need, but also you will have to then order the architrave to go on both sides of the door. Now, each side of a door, a head and 2 sides, is called a set. So you want to be ordering 2 sets for each door, one for the inside and one for the outside, except, of course, for the doors that lead to the outside. You won't be having architrave on the outside of the building. Do you understand? So therefore, it's about knowing how many sets to order. So you can go around all the doors and count them all up and say, well, I've got 10 doors, so I need to have 20 sets, okay? But 2 or 3 of them will be the external doors. You won't need to have a set on the outside of the building. Now, in the book, in the level 3 book, there's a page talking about area measurements, and you've got the area of a triangle, the area of a square, the area of a rectangle, the area of a parallelogram. If you don't know what that is, that's like a square that's been tipped sideways. That's called the 2 sides are parallel. The top and bottom are parallel, and the 2 sides are parallel. And then we have a trapezium, right? So this is a square that's had the sides brought in, so it becomes that trapezoid shape. And then there's the circle, and there is a sector of a circle, or part of a circle, and then there is the ellipse. Now, I don't know anyone that ever needs to work out the area of an ellipse, okay? But in the book, you'll find the calculations to enable you to work out the area of these unusual shapes. Many of them are unusual. And so it gives you then a number of simple exercises to enable you to do that. The other interesting thing that's very important, we mentioned it briefly, is calculating waste percentages. And it's generally accepted in the building industry that you need to have about a 10% or 12% wastage. Now, certain items of woodworking don't have any wastage, hardly at all. So, for example, if you're laying laminate flooring, you'll discover that the offcut at the one end of a run will become the first piece laid down on the next run. Okay, so that isn't a piece of waste, is it? It's actually used immediately. And when you come to the end of all the floor, you'll find that you'll have no wastage at all, pretty well. But you might have a few spare pieces, hopefully, that didn't need to be laid. And that, of course, then becomes wastage, unless, of course, you're able to then use those pieces in another room to do exactly the same thing again. So there are certain aspects of joinery in which there's virtually no wastage, and then there's others in which wastage is quite extensive. And so what you'll need to do is, with practice and experience, is monitor yourself to find out what your wastage is likely to be. It's very important. You know, if you get to the end of a job and you need to order another 10% of materials, That's going to affect your final cost. It's going to affect your profit. On the other hand, if you order, when you're making a calculation, if you order too much wastage, then you'll find that your overall price will be too high and other people will beat you to the quote. So this is why it's important to be able to monitor the wastage that you use. Okay, we'll look forward to seeing you on our next video. Have a great day and bye for now.